Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Sada Shiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Parampara. In our last session, we had covered up to Shlok 36. We began from Shlok 31. Kosheshu ayam teshu tu tattat akritihi vibhati sangat sphatikah upalah yatha asanga rupah ayam ajah yatah advayah vijñāyate asmin paritah vicharite. So earlier Prabhu Ramchandra ji spoke about the three bodies, the gross Annamaya Kosha, the gross physical body, then the subtle body, the Sukshma Sharira, and then the causal body. So together, these three bodies together are the Pancha Kosha. The Annamaya Kosha, Pranamaya Kosha, then Vijnanamaya, Manomaya Kosha, Vijnanamaya Kosha, and Anandamaya Kosha. So Annamaya Kosha is the gross body, and then Pranamaya Kosha, Manomaya Kosha, and Vijnanamaya Kosha together, three together, it is called as a subtle body, the Sukshma Sharira, and then the causal body, that is the Anandamaya Kosha, is the causal body. Now here, Prabhu Ramchandra says that Kosheshu ayam teshu tu tattad akrutihi vibhati. Sanghat sphatiko upalah yatha. He gives an example that when the crystal ball, crystal glass is kept on a colored cloth, so it will appear of that color. Now, keep changing the color of the cloth, then the crystal glass will also appear of that color. Sometimes if the cloth is blue, the crystal glass will appear as blue, and if it is yellow, it will appear as yellow, red if it appears as red, and so on. Similarly, this, when there is an identity, when it is in close proximity, like that colored cloth in close proximity of that crystal glass, then it appears as if that crystal glass is of that color. Similarly, when this pure self is in close proximity of this Pancha Kosha, it appears as if that pure self has acquired the shape and quality of that particular kosha. You see? So, in contact with those, and then identified with that, it appears as if it is of that nature. So, when this ego or Jiva Bhava, when it is identified with the gross physical body, then one appears to have, one accepts the form and color and all that thing of the gross physical body. When it is identified with the Pranamaya Kosha, then there is this sense of hunger and thirst. When it is identified with the Manomaya Kosha, there the happiness and misery, Sukha Dukkha, that is experienced. When I'm identified with the Vijnanamaya Kosha, then there is Karta Bhokta Bhava, doership notion and experiencership notion. And finally, when identified with this Anandamaya Kosha, the causal body, when identified with that, there is almost ignorance, pradnya, but there is an anubhuti of ananda. Therefore, from the deep sleep, when we wake up, we say, I didn't know anything, but I enjoyed it. So, according to this kosha, the close proximity, the self appears to take the quality and the form of that particular kosha. But self is asanga rupah ayam ajah yatah advaya. So the self is actually asanga, unattached, uncontaminated, unattached, unconditioned by these panchakoshas. It is ajaha. Ajaha, that is beginningless. Ajaha means ja is janma, birth. Ajaha is unborn. So unborn means beginningless. There is no birth for that. Unborn. Yata advayaha. It is one alone, one without a second. Being the infinite, there is nothing other than itself. Vijnayate asmin paritaha vicharite. How do we realize this self? Through contemplation on the higher reality. Thoroughly, when we contemplate on the higher reality, that is when we realize this self to be asanga, ajaha, advayaha. Then buddhe stridha vrittihi api iha drishyate swapnadi bhedena gunatrayatmanah. So buddhi is influenced by these three gunas, sattva, rajas, tamas. Avran is due to tamas. Then subsequent projection or the vikshepa, that is due to rajas. These are the expressions of this thing. And swapnadi bhedena, then the further division of the three states of consciousness, Jagra, Swapna and Shushupti. So it is influenced by the three gunas, influence, and then there is a subdivision, differentiation of the three states of consciousness, Swapnadi, Vedana, Gunatrayatmaka. Anyonya asmin vabhicharitah mrusha. So now Anyonya asmin vabhicharitah mrusha. Why this is illusory? There is no reality into these three states of consciousness, because when we define reality, what is reality? What is the absolute truth? Which remains the same in all periods of time. There is no change in that. It is ever present. That is the absolute truth. That is the pure self. Now, when it is said, this is anyonyataha asmin vyabhicharitah mrusha. Mrusha, that is illusion. Why this is an illusion? Because in the presence of one plane of consciousness, the other two is negated. In the Jagrat Avastha, there is no Swapna and Shushupti Avastha. They are negated. Similarly, in the Swapna Avastha, Jagrat and Shushupti Avastha is negated. And then further, in the Shushupti Avastha, the other two, the Jagrat and Swapna, is negated. So these three avasthas, they cannot be real, because by definition, reality is something that cannot be negated in three periods of time, in three avasthas, in the three states of consciousness, and so on. So because it is negated, therefore it is illusory. Anyonyataha asmin vyabhicharitah musha. And then the self is nitya pare brahmani kevale shiva. The self is nitya. In all periods of time, in all states of consciousness, nitya pare, that is supreme. Brahmani, that is Brahman, Kevale, Kevale, where there is no division such as, it is non-dual, Kevale, and Shiva, auspicious. So this is, self is Nitya, so Shariratita, it is beyond the three bodies, beyond the Panchakosha Tita, beyond the three avasthas, Avastha Traya, Kita, beyond the three avasthas, and so on. So it is realized through Nitya Anitya Viveka, Sat Asat Viveka, and Atma Anatma Viveka. So through continuous discrimination between what is Asat and what is Asat, what is existence, what is non-existent, what is Nitya, what is Anitya, what is eternal and what is ephemeral. Then what is Atma, what is Anatma, what is the self and what is not the self. All that is not the self is rejected. Then what remains is the self. So through this Viveka, one arrives at one's own real self. Then in the 33rd shloka, Prabhu Ramchandra ji said, Deha Indriya Prana Mana Chidatmana Sanghat Ajastram Parivartate Dhiyaha. So Deha Indriya Prana Mana Chidatmana. Actually, these are all enlivened by the pure self. The gross physical body, Indriya, the senses, Prana, the vital air sheath, then Mana, mind, Chidatmana, Sanghat. All these things together, they are illumined, they are enlivened by the pure self. And it is due to avidya alone. Dhiyavrittihi tamo mula ajna lakshana. So, because of this avidya or ignorance, now they are illumined and they are, of course, constantly changing. These are constantly changing. Sangat ajastram parivartate. Ajastram, endlessly they are changing. Parivartate, subject to modification, endlessly changing. And it is due to ignorance. So, dhiya vritti tamamula ajna lakshana. That is because of ignorance. So, and they are all of the nature of avidya, ignorance. Now, yavad bhave tavadasa bhava udbhava. So, as long as this buddhi is there, with the continuously changing, modifying thoughts are there, then this bhava udbhava, that is, the sansara continues, the birth in this sansara continues all the time, as long as this buddhi is there. So in self-realization, we have to actually transcend this mind-intellect equilibrium, going beyond the buddhi. As long as vrittis are there, we are still at the level of buddhi. Only when we transcend the buddhi, then we go beyond the vrittis. Therefore, of course, contemplation, we need buddhi to contemplate, to ascertain what we are not. Once that is complete, then we evolve and merge into that which is beyond buddhi. So, as long as there is this objectification of knowledge, that is the sense of otherness, the sansara continues. Because in the self, there is no sense of otherness, because other than that, nothing exists. Then, neti pramanena nirakruta akhilaha ruda samasvadita chidghanamruta tyajet ashesham jagat atta sadrisam pitva yathambha prajahati tatphalam. So then here Prabhu Ramchandra ji says that through the neti sadhana, neti pramanena nirakruta akhilaha. So all the conditionings, all the upadhis conditionings, they are all rejected through neti sadhana, not this, not this. So through viveka, panchakosha viveka and neti sadhana, this is all rejected. Rida samasvadita chidghanamruta. And then one experiences, or rather one becomes aware of this mass of pure, immortal mass of pure consciousness. Chidghana amruta. Amruta is immortal. Chidghana, the mass of, homogeneous mass of pure consciousness. And once one realizes that, tyajet ashesham jagat atta sadrisam. So having realized that, having realized the essence of the entire existence, one rejects everything. Tyajet ashesham, without keeping anything. Ashesham. And the example given here is pitva yathamba prajahati tatphala. Having enjoyed the coconut water, the shell is discarded. So in the same way, having realized the self, then there is no need for this world of names and forms. It is rejected. Why do we need this world of names and forms? In ignorance, of course, we need this world of names and forms. In pure knowledge, in the realization of the self, then this is not needed. Unless there is a mission in this world. Otherwise, this is not needed at all. Now, having said that, Kadachidatma na mruto na jayate, na kshiyate, na api vivardate nava. So, Shri Rama says here that the self never ever dies or is born. Namruto na jayate. It is neither ever born. So therefore, when it is not born, there is no question of death also. Kadachid atma namruto na jayate na kshiyate na api vivardate no anava. So it doesn't decay and there is no growth. Decay and growth, that is modification. When there is no birth and death, there is no question of any modification. There is no decay nor there is any growth. In infinite, there cannot be anything, something called as infinite minus one or infinite plus one. So there is no decay, no growth, no modification. So no birth, no death. Vivardate. Anavaha. Anavaha means it is not something new. It is the most ancient. Rather, it is timeless. It is beyond time. Nirasta sarva atishaya sukhatmaka. Nirasta. Nirasta sarva means it is devoid of all the conditions, everything that we can associate it with the self. So all the nama, rupa, guna, colors and forms and attributes and everything is all beyond that. Nirasta sarva and atishaya sukhatmaka. Atishaya sukhatmaka means that happiness, that bliss, it cannot be imagined. Atishaya sukhatmaka. It is immeasurable, it is infinite. One cannot imagine at all regarding that sukha, that bliss. Our Jnaneshwar Maharaj, wanting to explain what that infinite bliss is, and that infinite bliss is not somewhere yonder. It is our own swarupa. It is our own essential nature. Our own swarupa is the source of infinite happiness, infinite bliss. Now in ignorance, all of us want to be happy. And where do we seek happiness? We seek happiness in the external world. Through the five sense organs, we want to see something beautiful that will make us happy. Something, colors and forms that will make us happy. We want to hear something good that will make us happy. We want to smell something fragrant that will make us happy. We want to taste something delicious that will make us happy. We want to have a very sensual touch that will make us happy. So at the five sensory levels, we are seeking happiness in the external world. And two things are there. First thing is that we are dependent on the external object for this momentary. And moreover, the second thing is that the joy, pleasure or happiness that we get out of this is momentary and fleeting, passing. It will last for a few seconds, few minutes, an hour or two, a day or two, and that's it, gone. So here, Atishaya Sukhatmakaha is infinite bliss. It is 24/7 every moment and independent of external factors. Whether the conditions or the circumstances are favorable or not favorable, conducive or non-conducive, that infinite bliss is always there 24/7 every moment. It doesn't make any difference, and it is independent of the external factors. If you have to depend on external factors, what kind of happiness is that? Because any kind of dependency is a cause of bondage, and any kind of bondage is a cause of misery. So here, Atishaya Sukhatmakaha. So this Atishaya Sukhatmaka is independent of everything. This is actually the real thing. Now everybody in all the religions, they talk about heaven and hell and all that thing. Okay, after you die, you do something good and then you go to heaven and enjoy there and all that thing. And except Sanatan Dharma in other religions, that is the ultimate. Once you land in heaven or in Jannat, and that's the end of the story. There you are there and enjoying something there. But religion is not a transport company transporting souls to heaven or hell. No, absolutely not. Now, some people think religion to be like that, but spirituality, which is different from religion, spirituality is all about knowing oneself and discovering that heaven, that Swarga, that Jannat within our own self, which is a source of infinite bliss. Why the picture of this heaven, Swarga, Jannat is given? Because as it is, our life is full of misery, sorrow, and pain. So an idea is conceived about something, a heaven or a Jannat or a Swarga, where there is no pain, misery or sorrow. So that is given, but that is for whom it is. The story of heaven and hell is for those who are in the spiritual institution, but they are at the nursery level, nursery, play school, nursery, KG1 and KG2 level. For them, this story is good. Like great poet or Chacha Ghalib said, हमको मालूम है जन्नत की हकीकत, लेकिन दिल के बहलाने के लिए ये ख्याल अच्छा है. So this is for the ignorant one or those who are at very lower level of spiritual university, at the play school or nursery level. For them, this is okay. A concept of heaven, a concept of Jannat and all that. Swayam Prabha Sarvagatah Ayam Advaya. So this is Swayam Prabha, that is self-effulgent. Sarvagatah, that is all-pervading. Actually, to call it all-pervading is also wrong. When there is one without a second, where is the question of all-pervading? If there is something else which is limited in pervasiveness, pervades only a limited space, and then compared to that, we say that, okay, this is all-pervading. When that thing is not there, only this thing exists, there is no question of calling it all-pervading also. That alone is everywhere, nothing else. Swayam Prabha Sarvagatah Ayam Advaya. Advaya. So that which is infinite, that alone can be everywhere and non-dual. That is, so these are all the description of our own self. It is not the description of something else. So when it is said here, Kadachit Atma na mruto na jayate, it is regarding our own self. There is no death for us, there is no birth for us. There is no decay for us, and there is no growth for us. And we are the most ancient, Anava. And it is full of bliss and self-effulgent. And this is alone there, infinite. So therefore non-dual and all-pervasive. And then, Evam Vide Jnanamaya Sukhatmake, Katham Bhava Dukkhamaya Pratiyate. So, in this Atma, which is of the nature of pure infinite bliss, how can ever be there any trace of any sorrow, misery or pain? Absolutely not. You see, this is what it is. And if at all we experience this sorrow, misery or pain, it is because of what? Ajnanatah adhyasavashat prakashate. So it is only because of ignorance. Due to ignorance, we experience. Because of ignorance, there is avarana and vikshepa, veiling of the truth and projecting of that which is untruth. Avarana and vikshepa. So this not self is superimposed on the self. Ajnanatah adhyasavashat prakashate jnane viliyate virodhatah kshanat. So in knowledge, everything disappears because it is contrary to ignorance. Jnana is contrary to ajnana. So in that, everything disappears. So up to here, we have seen in our last session, we'll begin a new shloka today. Yadanyadanyatra vibhavyate brahmat adhyasamitya huramam vipaschitah asarpa bhutehi vibhavanam yatha rajvadiketad vadapishware jagat yad anyat anyatra vibhavyate brahmat adhyasam iti ahuhu imam amum vipaschitah asarpa bhutehi ahi vibhavanam yatha rajvadike tadvad api ishware jagat. Now, yat anyat anyatra vibhavyate brahmat adhyasam iti aha amum vipaschitah. So what do the wise call this? Adhyasam. What is adhyasam? Adhi plus asa. Adhyasam Adhyasam can be split up into Adhyasa is Adi plus Asa. Now, Dhi is intellect. So Dhi is intellect. Adhi is then Ajnana, that which is not Buddhi. Adhi is the opposite of Dhi. So without Buddhi or without Dhi, without intellect or without Buddhi, Asa means exist. So Adhyasa is Ajnana. Ajnana is Buddhi Rahita. There is no Buddhi, no intellect. So that is Adhyasa. So what is this Adhyasa? To see something different other than what it really is. So, yat anyat anyatra vibhavyate, that which appears something different than what it actually is. So, that is this adhyasa. Like a rope doesn't appear like rope, it appears like snake. So, that is adhyasa, that is superimposition. You see? Or it can be called as adhyaropa. Adhyaropa, adhyasa, superimposition. So this is what it is. So yadyat anyat anyatra adhyasa brahmat, that is due to delusion, adhyasam iti aha, that is what the wise people call it, vipaschitaha. Then asarpa bhute avibhavatam. So when any entity actually appears other than what itself is without losing its nature, like rope without losing its own form and quality and anything, it appears like snake in darkness. Similarly, when something appears other than itself without any change in it, then technically in Vedanta we call it as vivarta. Vivarta means appearance only. Vivarta. So in Vedanta, now in Vedanta we do not accept creation. There is neither creation nor destruction or anything like that. But then we experience this world around us. You see, so then it is said that it is vivarta, it is an appearance on the substratum of the pure self. So whatever we see, it is just an appearance on the substratum of the pure self. Without changing its own nature, the world of names and forms appears on the pure self, Brahman. Like there are certain things, like sarpa, we can call it, the snake, we can call it is vivarta on the rope, appearance on the rope of snake. So serpent is vivarta. So nama rupa, jagat of names and forms, is vivarta on the self. Similarly, blueness of the sky is vivarta on the space. Space doesn't have any color of its own. So this blueness of the sky is only vivarta. You see? Then mirage water, again it is vivarta on the sand, desert sand. Similarly, the ghost is vivarta on the post. And so on. These are the classic examples that are given here. And when somebody has got a vision defect, he may see two moons also, when there is some flaw in the vision. So when we discover the rope behind the snake, the space behind the blueness, the desert sand behind the mirage water, the post behind the ghost, so then we understand the substratum and we don't get deluded by the vivarta or the appearance or the superimposition. So also there is actually nothing to reject. In Vivartavada, there is nothing to reject because there is nothing there actually. Apart from the self, there is nothing there. So realizing the substratum behind the world of names and forms, Ananta Koti Brahmanda, then we have nothing to reject. In Vedanta, Vedanta accepts everything, rejects nothing, reflects everything, retains nothing. like a mirror. You see, that is what Vedanta is. So also, when we realize the self, there is nothing to reject, because apart from the self, there is nothing else there. You see, so there is nothing other than the self. So therefore, there is nothing to reject. Everything is the self alone. Even the vivarta, when the for the as far as the rope is concerned, the appearance of the snake is also, it is only an appearance on itself. As far as rope is concerned, there is no snake. But if that appearance is there, that appearance is only because of rope only. If that substratum of rope is not there, there cannot be an appearance or an illusion of snake also there. So it is all the substratum alone and nothing else. So, having said that, in the 38th shloka, here Shri Rama says, Vikalpa Maya Rahite Chidatmake Hankar Esha Prathama Prakalpita Adhyas Evatmani Sarva Karane Niramaye Brahmani Kevale Pare Vikalpa Maya Rahite Chidatmake Ahankara Esha Prathamaha Prakalpitaha Adhyas eva atmani sarva karane niramaye brahmani kevale pare. Now, vikalpa maya rahita chidatmake. This pure consciousness, chidatma, pure consciousness, is unattached or untainted or unconditioned by the avarana and vikshepa of Maya, the veiling and projection of Maya. That Maya doesn't affect this Brahman or the supreme reality or the pure self, Siddhatma. It is unaffected by that, the pure consciousness, which is the substratum of all, which is the so-called cause of everything, the substratum of all, Sarva Karani. So now, but this Maya, now we saw that Vivarta in the previous shloka. This Maya is brought in to explain certain things, because even though we may say that the Vedanta says that it has got no real existence, but we do experience it. When we do experience it, some explanation has to be given. That is how this Maya is brought in. To explain our direct experience of this world, the variety of names and forms, and we ourselves have the body. This is also a product of Maya. Maya, ignorance, ego, they are all synonymous terms. So these we do experience, even though Vedanta says they have no real existence, but we do experience. And what is the reason? Because in the pure self, there is no nama rupa, there is no multiplicity of names and forms. And it is neither, it doesn't create, nor destroy, nor sustain, because there is nothing like that. So to explain this creation, then this Maya is brought in. It is all because of this Maya Shakti. And Maya is brought in temporarily to give an explanation to the ignorant mind. When a question is put, what about this that we experience? You say that there is no such creation or destruction or anything like that, but we do experience this. Then this Maya is brought in temporarily to give an explanation. Okay, you experience all these things. It is because of Maya. Maya that veils the reality of the absolute truth and then projects this that is not self, unreal thing. Like there is often quoted story in Upanishads, in Vedanta, the story of this. One person died and he had 3 sons, and then he left a strange will. He said that in that will, he said that from all his assets, all his property, half of it will go to one son, 1/3 will go to another, and 1/9 will go to the third one. So they divided all the properties according to the father's will, and 17 horses were left. Now they were in a fix. How to divide these 17 horses? Half, 1/3, and 1/9. So they were in a fix. They couldn't divide this. What to do? At that time, the royal advisor was passing by. So they asked him for advice. Since he is a royal advisor, he's an intelligent fellow, so they asked him, our father left such a will, we divided everything as per his wish, and now we have got 17 horses. How do we divide with this thing? The half and 1/3 and 1/9. So then the royal advisor was gracious enough to lend them his horse. So now 17 plus 1 horse, that royal advisor's horse was also added to the lot. So there were 18 horses now. So he asked, now what is the father's will? Father's will is half should go to the one son. So half of 18/9 was given to one son. Then 1/3 should go to another son. So 1/3 of that 6 was given to another son. So 9 plus 6, 15 horses were given. And now 3 horses remain. And the third was 1/9 should be given to the third son. So 1/9 of the 18, that is 2 horses. So the 2 horses was given to the third son, and the royal advisor took back his horse and went on his way. So similarly, like this 18th horse, this Maya is brought in to solve certain problems, things that cannot be explained to an ignorant mind, then this Maya is brought in. So Vikalpa Maya Rahite Chidatmake Ahankaresha Prathama Prakalpita. So Ahankara Esha Prathama Prakalpita. So in this pure self, the first Vikalpa, the first superimposition. What is the first superimposition? The first superimposition is this ego in this pure self. So now Ahankar is the first Vikalpa when we wake up from the deep sleep state. In the deep sleep state, temporarily that ego is absorbed in its source. So the first Vikalpa when we wake up from the deep sleep state, that is Ahankara. This Ahankara or the ego is projected on this pure self. Prakalpita. That is projected on the self. It is superimposed on that. Adhyasa eva atmani sarva karani. It is superimposed on this Atma, which is the substratum and cause of everything. This ego is superimposed on that. You see? So, therefore, this Maya together, then this Maya has projected this ego, this Ahankara is also Maya, the cause of samsara. And then Adhyasa eva atmani sarva karine. Then Niramaye Brahmani Kevale Pare. Niramaye. So this Brahman or the pure self or our own Atma is Niramaye. Niramaye without any blemish, without any taint, without any contamination. Niramaye. Pare, supreme. Kevale. Kevale, that alone is. Kevale means there is no division in that. Akhanda. Kevale. Akhanda, there is no parts in that. There is no Vijatiya, Sajatiya or Swagata Bhed in that. There is no question of any Bheda. It is one homogeneous, that is it. Homogeneous mass of pure immortal consciousness. That is what it is. Niramaya Brahmani Kevale Pare. Now, having said that, in the 39th shloka, Ichhadi Ragadi Sukhadi Dharmikaha Sadadhiya Sansuti Hetavah Pare Yasmat Prasuptau Tadbhavatah Parah Sukhasvarupena Vibhavyate Saha. It has to be Saha, the last word. It is not Naha. It's Saha. So, Ichhadi Ragadi Sukhadi Dharmikaha Sadadhiya Sansruti Hetavah Spure Yasmat Prasuptau Tad Abhavatah Parah Sukhaswarupena Vibhavyatehi. So now, in this Ichhadi, Ragadi, Sukhadi, Dharmika, Sada Dhiyah and Sanskruti Hetavah. So Ichhadi, desires or non-desires, Ichha Adi. So Ichha, Kamna, desires, Anichha, non-desires, and so on. Ichhadi, Ragadi, Raga, Dvesha, likes, dislikes, attachment and aversion, Asakti, and so on. Ichhadi, Ragadi, Sukhadi, Sukha, Dukkha, happiness, misery, sorrows, joys, pain and pleasure, and so on. So Ichhadi, Ragadi, Sukhadi, Dharmikaha. So they all belong to Sada Dhiyah. Always they belong to Dhiya, Buddhi. So Mana Buddhi or to Dhiya always belongs to Dhiya, and it is Sanskruti Hetave, and it is the cause of Sansara. So here it is the cause of Sansara. These modifications of the mind, they belong to Buddhi, and it is the cause of Sansara. So we are Dukhi, so we want to get rid of that Dukkha. So we get into the Sansara to get rid of Dukkha. Kamana is there, Ichha is there, desire is there. Again we get into action, into the Sansara. And so on. So all these things is the cause of Sansara. Sanskruti Hetave Pare. It belongs to Pare. And the Supreme Self is, of course, other than that. And that is projected in this Supreme. So this Ichhadi, Ragadi, Sukhadi, Dharmika, which belongs to Buddhi, it is superimposed on the Supreme. And this is the cause of Sansara. Now, what is the proof that it belongs to this Buddhi and not to Atma or not to gross physical body? It belongs to only Buddhi. Because one can always ask this question. Yasmat prasupta tad abhavatah parah sukha swarupena vibhavyatehi. So, what is the proof? The proof is in the deep sleep state. In the deep sleep state or Sushupti Avastha, however much a big tragedy must have collapsed over us in the waking plane of consciousness, or whatever sorrows, miseries, or pain we are going through in the waking plane of consciousness, or whatever sorrows, miseries, or pain we experience in the dream state of consciousness, none of that touches in the deep sleep state. In the deep sleep, we have no notion of the body, senses, mind, intellect. There is absolutely no notion about it at all. In the deep sleep state, that ego that identifies with this, that is also absent. And however much sorrows and miseries may one have in the waking plane of consciousness or experience in the Jagrata Avastha, waking plane, or in the dream also, it doesn't touch him in the deep sleep state. So whoever wakes up from the deep sleep state, they will have a similar experience. I didn't know anything, but I enjoyed it. So even though in the waking plane of consciousness, he has got lots of miseries and sorrows, but in the deep sleep state, temporarily he enjoyed it. They were absent. Why they were absent in the deep sleep state? That which was present in the waking and the dream state, but it was suddenly absent in the deep sleep state. Because in the waking plane also that Buddhi is there, and in the dream state also Buddhi is there. And in the deep sleep state, temporarily that Buddhi is absent, because that ego is also not there to identify with that intellect, the Buddhi. So therefore, this is absent in the deep sleep state. This is the proof that it belongs to Buddhi, mind, intellect, equipment, and not to the self, because self is present in the deep sleep state also. In the deep sleep state, the gross body of the waking plane is not available for experience in the dream and the deep sleep state. And the subtle body is not available for experience in the deep sleep. It is available only in the dream state. So they are absent. So along with that, the sorrows, miseries, and other experiences of the waking and the dream, they are also absent in the deep sleep. And one is closest to one's real self, and therefore one gets a glimpse of the pure bliss in the deep sleep state. So that is the proof that it belongs to the buddhi and not to the self. Here another thing is also proven. What is proven? If one says that, how can one be happy without actually indulging in the objects of this world? The things and beings which appear to give a certain kind of happiness, joy, or pleasure, without indulging in that, how can one be happy? If you say that if one says that self is of the nature of infinite bliss on your own without actually indulging in any object other than our own self, how can we be happy? Again, the deep sleep experience is a proof that we can be happy without indulging in any external object. Because in deep sleep, what have we enjoyed? Have we seen something beautiful there, or smelled something fragrant, or tasted something delicious, or heard something melodious, or something good? Or did we have some sensuous touch or anything like that? No, none of that. And yet, after waking from the deep sleep state, we say, I didn't know anything, but I enjoyed it. So, without indulging in any object, we were happy, we enjoyed it. So, that is the proof that, and that happiness has come from our own self, from within. And that is our own nature of supreme bliss. And therefore, you may have seen or heard stories of great Mahatmas. Their circumstances were not good. Their external circumstances, conditions were not good. Even they had serious illnesses also. Some of the great Mahatmas suffered from deadly diseases like cancer and things like that. Yet, they were one with their own self, and they were 24/7 every moment in that infinite bliss. That didn't touch them. When somebody asked Nisargadatta Maharaj, he was suffering from cancer. Then somebody asked him, Maharaj, you have cancer? So Maharaj smiled and said, no, I don't have cancer. I am cancer. Who can say that? One who is one with his own self, pure infinite bliss. And cancer and all these things have nothing to do with that. Because the ego that identifies with the gross body, and after identification, the pain of the gross body is experienced in the mind. That ego itself is not there to identify with that gross body. So therefore, when that ego is not there to identify with the gross body, even if the arm is chopped off, you will not know. That is why when somebody is in samadhi, when he has transcended the mind-intellect equipment also, if somebody chops off his head, he will not know. He will not feel anything. Because that ego is not there to identify. When ego doesn't identify with the body, then there is no notion. There is no notion of pain or anything like that. We can do it under anesthesia and things like that, where general anesthesia is given during surgery so that you don't feel any pain. So it is kind of deep sleep state, but it is beyond the deep sleep also, unconscious state. And therefore that identification is not there, and therefore there is no sense of pain at that time. Once the effect of that anesthesia start reducing, then we'll start feeling the pain. The ego will identify. Once one wakes up from the deep sleep state, he says, I slept very well, I enjoyed it very well, I didn't know anything. But once he is fully awakened to the waking plane of consciousness, and then he identifies with his body, his form and everything. Oh, I've got so many sorrows and miseries and this and that and all that thing, and he becomes miserable. So if this ego is dissolved in the realization of the self, it doesn't matter how the external things are. One will be always happy. So Yasmat prasuptav tat abhavatah para sukha swarupena vibhavyate hi. So this is all these modifications belong only to buddhi and not to the self. Having said that, in the 40th shloka, Anadya vidyodbhava buddhi bimbitah Jiva prakasho yamatiryate chitah Atma dhyasaakshitaya pruthak stitah Buddhya parichinna para sa evahi. Anadi अविद्या उद्भव बुद्धि बिंबतः जीव प्रकाशः अयम् इति इरियते चितः आत्माधियः साक्षितया पृथक् स्थितः बुद्ध्या अपरिच्छिन्न परः स एव हि. So now here anadi avidya udbhava buddhi bimbataha jiva prakasha ayam iti iryate chitah. So this pure consciousness with the upadhi of antakarana. Antakarana, the inner equipment, that is the complete complex of mana, buddhi, chitta, ahankar. Together they are, this is called as antakarana. And this pure consciousness is reflected. Now this antakarana is the product of ignorance. Born out of this anadi avidya, product of ignorance. So this, now this consciousness is reflected in this antakarana, particularly in buddhi. And then there is a chidabhasa, reflection is there, and there, that is where the jiva bhava, the ego appears, and jiva bhava manifests. So jiva prakashaha ayam iti iryate chitaha. So this jiva bhava appears in this self, in this buddhi, antakarana. Atma dhiyah sakshitaya pruthak sthitah buddhya aparichinna parah sa eva. So atma dhiyah sakshitaya pruthak sthitah. So self illumines everything. Nothing can illumine the self, but self illumines everything. And it is also sakshi, atma dhiyah sakshitaya. It is also sakshi and pruthak sthitaha. Pruthak sthitaha means it is separate or something other than this antakarana. It is not antakarana. Antakarana is in itself superimposed on it. So it is separate from buddhi. And then buddhya aparichinna paraha sa evahi. So that which is unconditioned. Now here buddhi, in this line, buddhi means vritti or thoughts. So it is not conditioned by the modifications of thought. That which is unconditioned or not conditioned by the modification of thought or limited by thought. Buddhi aparichinna, it can be limited by thought also. That which is not limited by thought, that which is not contaminated or tainted by thought modification. So that is the supreme. Sa eva hi. That alone is the supreme. So now all the sorrows, miseries, pain and all that thing, ichha and all that thing that belong to buddhi. So it is not nothing to do with the self. It is other than, the self is other than this buddhi, separate from that. And then it has got nothing to do. It is not affected by, tainted by, contaminated by this buddhi and its modification. The thought modification or the mind and the modifications of various emotions, feelings and sentiments. So it is not affected by that at all. This self is other than that. Now, having said that, in the 41st shloka, Chidbimba Sakshat Madhyan Prasangatah Vekatra Vasadanalak Talohavat Anyonya Madhyasa Vashat Pratiyate Jada Jadatvam Chachidatma Chetasah. Chidbimba Sakshi Atmadhyam Dhyam Prasangatah Tu Ekatra Vasa Analakta Lohavat Anyonyam Adhyasavashat Pratiyate Jada Ajadatvam Cha Chidatma Chetasah. Now, earlier it said how the Jiva Bhava is born, that is in the pure self, with this Antakarana born out of Anadi Avidya, there it is reflected, and that is where the Jiva Bhava is born. Now further, Chidbimba Sakshi Atmadhya Prasangatah to Ekatra Vasat Analakta Lohavat. Now here Prabhu Ramchandraji gives an example. Because there is a mutual superimposition, and they take the qualities of each other. Now, the example which we have seen in Atma Bodh also, and which we have seen in that Vakya Vritti also, two different examples are there. One example is, here they have given Analakta Lohavat. The example that has come in Atma Bodh also, the iron ball and put into the fire. Now, fire and iron ball, they are different. Iron ball is round, spherical in shape, cold to touch, and black in color. Whereas the fire has got no form, no shape. Iron ball has got weight. Fire has got no weight, no form, no shape. It is hot to touch and it is bright compared to this black iron ball. Now, when this iron ball is put into the fire, then when it is heated up and it becomes red hot. So now that fire has acquired the shape and the weight of that iron ball, and that iron ball has acquired the heat and the brightness, the red color of that fire. So this is called as mutual superimposition. So now this example is given here. Similarly, there is a mutual transfer of the gunas, of the qualities between this Chidatma and this Chetasa, or this Jada Buddhi. Buddhi is, of course, inert, insentient, non-living. It has to be enlivened by consciousness. So there is a mutual superimposition like that. And then this Jada Buddhi appears to be this intelligent ego, sentient ego. You see, active and sentient ego. So, Anyonyam adhyasa vashat pratiyate. It is because of the mutual superimposition, it appears so. Anyonyam adhyasa vashat pratiyate. Jada ajadatvam cha chidatma chetasa. So Chidatma, the pure self, and Chetas, that is Buddhi. One is pure consciousness, the other is inert. And mutual superimposition, they appear to acquire this color, this quality. So with this close proximity, due to this close proximity, this Jada Buddhi appears to be sentient, conscious, active, intelligent ego. You see? So this is how this, because all this is Jada, inert, insentient. The gross physical body, the sense organs, the pranas, the mind, the intellect, they are all inert, insentient, made up of matter. It has to be enlivened by consciousness. Having said that, now this is what it is. Now, how to go about to know this? What is the sadhana and how to go about realizing this? In the 42nd shloka, Prabhu Ramchandra says, Guru sakashadapi veda vakyatah sanjnat sanjata vidyanubhavo nirikshatam swatmanam atmastamupadhivarjitam tyajet ashesham jadamatma gocharam. Guroho sakashad api veda vakyatah sanjata vidyanubhavah nirikshatam swa atmanam atmastham upadhivarjitam tyajet ashesham jadam atma gocharam. Now here, Guru sakashat api veda vakyata, being in close proximity of Guru, Guru sakashat api, or we can say by Guru's grace, either being in close proximity of Guru or with Guru's grace. So, and then Veda Vakyatah by the Shravana, Manana and Nididhyasana, listening to the Veda Vakyas, the Shruti, then reflecting on that, and then contemplating on that. So, Nididhyasana. So this is, then the two types of sadhana is there, Vyatireka sadhana and Anvaya sadhana. In Vyatireka sadhana is neti, not this, not this. This cannot be, rejecting all that is anatma. Then we come to the self. And in Anvaya sadhana, it is the positive study of the self. So now after rejecting everything that is anatma, what remains is the self. So by Shravana, what happens is that by Shravana sadhana, our ignorance goes away and we acquire paroksha jnana. So this ajnana is overcome and we acquire paroksha jnana. Manana, all the doubts that arise while we are listening to the scriptures, by reflecting on that, all the doubts will go away. And then with nididhyasana, viparayaya, or the sense of otherness also will disappear or it will be transcended. So this anvaya and vyatiyeka sadhana has to be done. So Guru Sakashad api Veda Vyakyata Sanjat Vidyanubhavaha Nirikshata. So one who has realized the self within one's own self, within one's own self, without any upadhi, without any conditionings or equipments, then swatmanam atmastha upadhi vivarjatam. So one has to know the self, having given up all the upadhis, without the upadhis, within oneself, swatmanam atmastha. So one has to realize this self within one's own self, upadhi varjitaha, without any upadhis. What are the upadhis? The panchakoshas are the upadhis. So one has to realize this, minus the panchakoshas, without these upadhis. Having realized that, then thereafter, tyajet ashesham jadam atma gocharam. Having realized this, thereafter what? Then the entire world of insentient, inert, non-living names and forms, they are all given up. That is perceived through the mind, intellect, and the senses. Whatever is perceived. When can we give this thing up? For what do we need this, and when can we give it up? Only all of us want to be happy in life, isn't it? Without exception, all of us want to be happy in life. And therefore, we go out searching for happiness in the things and beings of this world. And when can we give up going out? That is when we discover the source of infinite bliss within us. Then we give up going in the outside world. So, tyajet ashesham jadam atma gocharam. Then all that thing is given up, all that is perceived through the sense organs, the mind and the intellect, that is all given up once that self is realized within, which is of the nature of infinite bliss. The remaining shlokas we'll take up in our next session. Now, if there are any questions, you may ask.
Anybody wants to ask a question? Sai Ram?
Sai Ram, Asha speaking.
Any question?
Yeah. Hari Om Swamiji.
Om.
Swamiji, living with the last shloka, it was said, कि contemplation has to be done. The contemplation has to be done with a guru or without the guru. By reading the Vedants and understanding the Vedants, one person can contemplate. It is necessary to have a guru for this, or it can be done without a guru.
First thing is that we have to do the Shravan sadhana. What we are doing now is Shravana sadhana. We are listening to the scriptures. In Vedanta, the procedure is first we have to listen to the scripture through an acharya. That is the first thing. Vedanta should not be read by buying a textbook and then reading it, because there are lots of statements which may appear contradictory also. So then one will be confused. So therefore, always Vedanta has to be heard first. Shravana sadhana has to be done first. And having done the Shravana sadhana, then you go and reflect on that, mananam, and then nididhyasana is done. So when one does the Shravana sadhana, having heard the scriptures through an acharya, and then you reflect on that. So whatever doubts that may have arisen, that will get rid of, that will be cleared off. And then when you continuously contemplate on that, the knowledge becomes firm, you see, and then only we transcend the ephemeral and get into the eternal.
Thank you,
So
Swamiji.
there are steps like that. So
Yes.
Shravana, Manana, and Nididhyasana.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Anybody else?
Hari Om, Swamiji.
Yes.
In verse 36, we say, mentioned on the page 73, they have said that this state of the self is one of blissful, beatitude, it is self-effulgent, all-pervading, and non-dual. What is the actually meaning of non-dual? It is it is non-dual means there is no another self, or
Yeah, it is non-dual means there is nothing other than it. That's it. It is infinite. Only infinite can be non-dual. That alone is. Now, one confusion people may have. There are 7-8 billion people on earth. So, are there 7 billion or 8 billion Atma? No. Atma is only one. There are 7 or 8 billion reflections of those Atma, that alone, one Atma, 8 billion reflections.
so main Atma or whatever, how we are reflections. So we are
We are
reflection
not
of
reflection.
what?
No, we are not reflection. We are that Atma.
We are main, or I don't know
Yeah.
how to call it, like,
You are the supreme self. You are the supreme self.
but you said no, that we are not like, there are 9 million or whatever it is.
No, that is an appearance.
That is appearance, but there is
That-
someone main, like, whom we call God. Is that
Yeah.
God?
That God is not separate from you. That God is within you. That is not separate from you. There cannot be a God which can be apart from you. You see,
Then
because
whom
that
we are
God is
worshipping?
infinite. That God is infinite. You cannot be separate from that. That is within you. You cannot be separate from that. There is a famous story of that Akbar and Birbal, when Akbar said that I am greater than God. So Birbal said, oh yeah, you are right, you are greater than God. So Birbal said that, Akbar said to Birbal that this is a kind of sycophancy. So Birbal said, no, I am really telling you, you are greater than God. Prove it. Akbar told him, you see, you can do something which even God cannot do. What is that? See, if you don't like anyone in your kingdom, you can just banish him out of your kingdom. Now, God, even if he doesn't like anyone, he cannot banish him from his kingdom. By saying so, he also told Akbar, your kingdom is very small, don't compare yourself with God.
Yeah, but then God do
So
exist.
infinite, no, so infinity is something apart from which nothing can exist. So you are not separate from God at this very moment. It is within you and you are not separate. You are that pure self. You
But
see?
whatever God's power, God has created whole universe. Although we say like in Vedanta, I agree with what you are saying and all. I'm not disputing all those things, but there's still this doubt comes in your mind that if God is there, we are worshipping whom then? We are worshipping our own self. And if we see that we don't have so many powers which God has done, we don't have, I know, zero also, minus to that also, we don't have that much also.
Yeah, I'll tell you something. A question was put to Hanumanji by Prabhu Ramchandraji after they returned to Ayodhya. After killing Ravan and returning to Ayodhya, one day Prabhu Ramchandraji asked this question to Hanumanji. What is our relationship? Then Hanumanji answers. What does he say? Deha buddhyatu dasoham,
Yeah.
jiva buddhyatvam shakah, atma buddhyatvam evaham, iti me nishchitamatihi. When I'm identified with the body, I'm your das.
Yes.
When I'm identified with my Jiva Bhava, I'm your Ansha, your part. And when I'm identified with my own real self, I am you, you are me, there is no difference. So it is an evolutionary process. From Sagun Sakar, we go to Sagun Nirakar towards the Nirgun Nirakar. Therefore, the spiritual evolution, it is an evolution. It is not a revolution. That is why we have temples and gods and goddesses and idols and puja and part, because we are going through an ignorant person who has no exposure whatsoever. You cannot teach him Vedanta. This is the problem. So for that, there has to be some path. That is the beauty of Sanatan Dharma. In Sanatan Dharma, as many are the people, so many are the paths. And for each and every one of us, there is a path. No one can say that, okay, this is not my path. Vedanta, I cannot understand. No problem. You don't understand Vedanta. There is Bhakti Yoga, there is Karma Yoga, there is Dhyan Yoga, there is Kundalini Yoga, there is Hatha Yoga. So many other yogas are there. So whichever suits you according to your own temperament, your own physical, mental, and intellectual, spirit, the evolutionary level, whichever suits you, you can adopt that path, and slowly you will evolve. So from Sagun Sakar to Nirgun, Sagun Nirakar and Nirgun Nirakar, it is a slow process of evolution. So that is how we go. That is how we have to understand. That is when many people, when they are from the Bhakti Marga and then suddenly they come to the Jnana Yoga, they find it little difficult to understand or accept things. You see? So it is an evolutionary process. It is not immediate. And Hanumanji put it very beautifully. An evolution that happens like that. Now, Muslims say that Allah has got no form. But have they all Muslims graduated to worshipping a formless God? No, absolutely not. As long as you are identified with the body, you need a form to worship. You see, you cannot worship without a form. So therefore, they have kept the Kaaba there. They have destroyed all the idols inside the Kaaba, but they kept the Kaaba there. So there has to be some locus to focus your mind on. So when they do that namaz, they have to be turned towards that Makkah and focus their mind on that Kaaba. So they take the assistance of all the three: space, time, and object. They take the space. They have to direct themselves towards Kaaba. 5 times a day they pray, and they focus on that object called Kaaba. And yet they say that they worship a formless Allah. It is not possible. They have to focus. If they worship formless Allah, why keep that Kaaba there? Remove that also.
No, but Swamiji, when we pray, I say that God take care of everybody, like, being today, being New Year's Eve, we pray for everybody's health and wealth and all. Then whom we are praying to? We are praying to ourselves only. And who is taking care of us? Ourselves only. We are taking care of all those people. How it will be possible?
So the thing is that as long as we have not realized the self, as long as we consider the body to be real, we are identified with the body, we consider ourselves to be the body, then this worship of the deities are there. And that also, a devotee's warmth only manifests the form. You see, in the devotees, coolness of the devotee's devotion, a form takes place. Prabhu Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, he put it very well. Between the two, the formless and with the form. He says that with the coolness of devotee's devotion, that infinite take a manifested form. And with the heat of Jnanagni, that it melts and becomes water again. In the same water, the form is taken and again melts and becomes water. So as long as ignorance is there, as long as we consider ourselves to be this form, we need a form, a name and form to worship. And once we start transcending this, beyond that, then only we don't need it. But as long as we consider ourselves to be this body, we need a form. So we cannot worship without a form. If we are identified with the body and we consider ourselves to be the body in ignorance, we have to have a form. And form can be anything, whether it is Lord Shiva or Krishna or Rama or Ganpati or Hanumanji, whatever it may be, it doesn't matter.
But who hears our prayers? We are praying to whom? Prayers are heard by whom? And what is when we get response from the prayer, whatever our we thinks, like, not materialistic, but today also I feel like, no, I feel like touching your feet, suppose, like, so that virtually I can do it, but suppose I have to do it otherwise, how it can be? So who hears our prayers and who
So-
answers our prayers?
Whoever you pray, that entity hears your prayer. If you are praying to Lord Rama hears your prayer. If you are praying to Lord Krishna hears your prayer. If you are praying to Lord Ganpati will hear your prayer.
But they don't exist, no? They don't exist.
For
They
whom
are
for whom they don't exist.
for a body, for ignorant person like me.
For ignorant person they exist.
Yeah, for enlightened person, they don't exist.
For the one who has realized the self, they have all merged. So for an ignorant person, these the deities they exist.
Exist,
Isn't it?
yes, but what my question is, Swamiji, who hears our prayers
The
and who
same
answers
deity.
our prayers?
The same deity. In ignorant, we are praying to Lord Ganesha. So Lord Ganesha will hear the prayer.
But if he is not there, then how?
For whom he is not there.
For enlightened person.
For enlightened person, it is not there. Enlightened person will not pray. An ignorant person will only pray, isn't it?
Yeah, that is
So
true.
for ignorant person, Ganesh is there. For enlightened person, Ganesh is not there. And he will not even pray.
Okay. Swamiji, you made me more confused.
No, I have not made you confused. Who prays to whom? Will an enlightened person pray?
No.
Who is one with the Lord himself? Why will he pray? He will not pray. So who is praying?
We require some blessing, no?
Yeah, so one who is praying is the ignorant one is praying. So ignorant one will only pray to the deities, to gods and goddesses, not the enlightened one.
That is true, but we require God's grace, we require Guru's grace, we require elders' grace. So this grace comes from where?
Yeah, the grace comes from within you only, because Atma Krupa is very important. Without Atma Krupa, we cannot realize. Even if the Guru Krupa is there, Deva Krupa is there, Shruti Krupa is there, without Atma Krupa, there is no realization.
Swamiji,
Understand this very clearly. Understand this very clearly. Who prays and who does not pray? An enlightened person need not pray, because he is one with the supreme reality. And for whom an ignorant person, for he has to pray wherever he has got his devotion. If he is devoted to Lord Krishna, he'll pray to Krishna. If he is devoted to Ganesha, he'll pray to Ganesha. So for him, that is reality, and he'll pray, and his prayers will be answered, and all that thing is there. It is for the ignorant one. So who are we at this moment? If we are ignorant, we have not realized the self, we are thoroughly identified with the body, we need a form to worship.
So it is okay to worship.
Yeah, there is nothing wrong in that. But then, as I told you earlier also, worship, we have to graduate to worshipping from the worship with Dravya to Manas Puja.
Yeah.
That graduation we have to slowly process. The process should start with that. So we have to worship.
Yes.
So if you are worshipping, no problem, continue the worship. But now, because instead of Dravya, start doing Manas Puja. In Manas Puja, the mind has to be extremely single-pointed. Understand that very clearly. And then in Manas Puja, then there is an interactive session with your favorite deity. And it is a fun session. It is an extremely personal conversation with your Lord. You see? And you make it that way. And slowly you will transcend that stage also. That is how you go about it. Suddenly, one is ignorant and one is in duality and all that thing. Suddenly, that Atma Bodh doesn't happen just like that. So it takes time. And whatever conceptions, perceptions, notions that we have accumulated over the lives together. Even in Sandipani also, those who have come for the path of devotion, when they hear Vedanta, they find it very confusing, or sometimes they find it very difficult to accept also. So it takes time. Those who have got a samskara of this Purvajanma samskara is there to study the scriptures, they can take it very easily. But others, they find it difficult. So this is what it is. There is nothing wrong in worship. Absolutely nothing wrong. You can continue your worship.
Thank you, Swamiji. Hari Om.
Swamiji.
Yes.
Hari Om, Swamiji.
Yes, Hari Om.
Our problem is that we are ignorant at the same time. We are half
Enlightened.
Half knowledge is dangerous.
we think that we are getting the enlightenment.
No, 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 no. That is,
No,
I don't know
no.
where it is.
The thing is that we have Paroksha Jnana, and from the standpoint of Paroksha Jnana, we start questioning our other practices which we're doing in ignorance. We start questioning that. But that is a wrong thing. We have only Paroksha Jnana. After Aparoksha Anubhuti, this question will not be there. After Aparoksha Anubhuti, after realization of self, this question will not come to our mind. Whom am I praying to? And whether the God is there or not there. If I am praying to, if I am myself God, who is listening to it? All these questions will not come to one who has realized the self. These questions come only in our ignorance.
Yes.
That is temporary.
Swamiji, but we are at the Manan state still.
Yeah.
So Manan still, like, we are reading scriptures, we are understanding from you, Pankaj Bhai, everything. Like, so it takes time for Manan,
this is,
because now we are doing Shravanam, only hearing and
Yeah.
reading scriptures and all. After that, like, of course, we have started little bit Manana, but to come to that level, it is really
so
difficult.
it will come. It will come slowly. It
Of
will
course,
happen.
it will come up with
Yeah,
your
it has
blessing
to
and
come.
your guidance. It will come definitely.
Has to come. If
But
we are
still
all the
this
same
question
supreme,
comes.
we are all the same supreme reality. Someday or the other, we'll realize it, and realization takes just a fraction of a moment, just like that. Anytime anyone can realize it. You see, any moment, anything can get us into that stage. One monk was passing by, and one bird was singing. So he stopped there, and he started hearing that bird sing. And he realized that he's so melodious, out of the world. And he stood there listening to that, with the eyes closed. He was listening to that sound, that bird's song. And then after that, he went to his monastery. When he went to his monastery, he found it all strange. He couldn't recognize that monastery. He couldn't recognize the people there, the monks there. Neither the monks could recognize him. Then after discussing and talking about, he realized that he went to the monastery after several centuries.
Oh. Good experience.
He went into eternity listening to the song of that bird. Where time stopped for him.
Yes.
So it can happen any moment, anywhere, in any experience. So
Thank you,
always be
Swami.
alert. So shall we conclude?
Swamiji.
Yes, Swamiji. 1 minute, Swamiji. 1 minute. Yes, go ahead, Swami.
Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namah. Harihi Om.